experiencing today a very, very singular phenomenon, which is the undergraduate hackathon. Right now, this is you. You are eager and excited to get started hacking on a project and spending the next 24 hours bringing into life something that doesn't exist already. In 24 hours, this is going to be you. You're going to be dejected. Your soul will be creeping out of your ear, and you will be wishing that the bus would arrive to take you back where you came from and never embarked on this journey in the first place. The experience of a hackathon in a young engineer's life is a very, very special one in the sense that it is a crucible of learning a whole lot of practical stuff in a very, very short amount of time through building something to share with your peers. Right? And this experience is definitely going to be really tiring, but will give you the opportunity to build some amazing things. And some of those amazing things are going to be built on software that already exists. And what you're going to discover this weekend, I hope, is the amazing utility of the tools that are available to you as a programmer right now in the history of humanity. There has never been a more productive worker in the history of humanity than a programmer that lives on Earth right now. And a lot of that comes from APIs. So my name is Rob Spectre. I work for an API company, so I have a very strong opinion about this. Called Twilio. We're a cloud communications firm that's based in San Francisco, but I live and work right here in the greatest city in the world, New York. And today, we're going to take you through how to use some of these tools and leverage the software that other people have made in your hacks this weekend. Does that sound good to you? Okay. This is not going to be a lecture. This is going to be a conversation. This is going to be a discussion. So if you have any questions or anything like that, don't save it to the end. Just pipe up. There's only about 30 of us in this room. So if you have anything you would like clarity on, clarification on, go ahead and hook it up. For those of you who are compulsive note takers, I am one too, and that's totally okay. But you can save yourself some work and just go to my GitHub. If you go to github.com/RobSpectre, and you can get all these slides and an outline for this entire talk with links to everything I'm already talking about here. So if you see something on the screen that you really, really love, you do not have to quickly take a picture of it. You can just go to GitHub and get all the information that you want. But if you want to take notes, go ahead.
What's the URL like?
GitHub.com/Rob Spectre. SPECTRE. Cool. Awesome. So, getting started with APIs. First, we're going to talk about some of the concepts that underlie every API that you use. These are going to be the basic theory that you need to understand, the types of APIs that are going to be available for you to use this weekend. And we're going to talk about the landscape. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of APIs and some of what those APIs do. And because you guys came all the way down during the beginning of the day's hacks, I'm going to give you some super special APIs that I know no one else at this competition knows yet. So you have a little treat to go with you. They're all brand new APIs that barely anyone knows about that you guys can use in your hacks. And then we're going to talk about some tools to make working with those APIs a lot easier. So first, API. What is an API? Does anybody know the definition? Application programming interface. And as it turns out, APIs, you use them all the time. Every time you open a language interpreter, you are using an application programming interface. What it has come to mean in modern parlance is usually a web service that you consume that gives you some sort of higher order functionality, right? So when we're talking about APIs, we're not talking about magic methods that are available off of a Python module. What we're talking about is a web service that does some crazy stuff. Now, many of these services that you're going to be using conform to a design pattern called REST. Who knows what REST is? Sam, go get them, stud.
Representational state transfer.
Representational state transfer, that's correct. So this is not a protocol. It's not a standard. It's not even a specification. It is something a dude, I'm not kidding, wrote for his grad school thesis about 15 years ago, and we have been arguing about it ever since. But what REST, to not go into the super details, which are super boring, what REST allows you to do is easily interface with other web services without having to define or expect any typing ahead of time. So web services beforehand were oblique in the sense that you couldn't really tell what they did by what they described in the case of an RPC-based design, or they were super heavy with something like SOAP, or Simple Object Access Protocol, which required you to do a whole bunch of head banging against the wall before you could even get some reasonable data out. What REST allows you to do is interact with a web service with the same HTTP verbs that you use for your browsers right now. So when you put in Twilio.com into your browser, which you should all do, by the way, and hit enter, you're going to make a GET request that's going to return index.html. Many of the APIs that we're going to demonstrate today use the same concepts, only they return something that should be read by your application instead of by it in the base. Does that make sense? Some of the REST APIs that you can use right now, which are pretty slam bang, include the New York Times, which you saw generate today. Absolutely spectacular suite of APIs. The reason why I always like to plug the New York Times is that they have a lot more data available than just newspaper articles. Their congressional API, for example, is like really, really shit hot. If there is anything civically related or organizationally related or financially related to your hack, definitely check out the New York Times because there's a lot of hidden gems in there that a lot of folks don't know about. There is also Grand New York Startup, Tumblr, which is the finest API with which to retrieve any animated GIF on the planet. Etsy, which has some really, really beautiful photographs of handmade items that they're selling in their store. And of course, a company called Twilio. If you want to send text messages or make phone calls within your application, you can use a REST API to do that. So, REST API requests. You're making a request outbound to a server, and then you're getting some sort of information back, or you're manipulating some sort of state that's going on the outside. That's the idea of REST. Make sense? Sound good? Cool. Next bit that we'll talk about is webhooks. They're a little bit more complex, but not as difficult as you might have seen. So webhooks are like hooks for the web. They are programmatic signals that you can send to another application to send events to your app anytime the state of some sort of thing that you care about changes. Okay? Now, it's a little difficult to explain in a sentence, so let's instead use this gorgeously designed diagram. So let's say you have your application, and you have a API that's sitting up in the cloud, right? That API has something you want. It could be a newspaper article. It could be the information on a pizza joint. It could be the listing of all your droplets on DigitalOcean. And every time something changes with that piece of information you want, your application is going to want to know what's going on with that, right? Well, without webhooks, basically you have to do what you will here refer to as polling, right? You have to ask the API, hey, has something changed with this thing I want? API is going to reply no. Then you're going to have to ask again. API is going to reply still no. You're going to ask one more time. The API is going to reply no. You're going to ask it a fourth time in the same minute. Maybe you encounter some sort of rate throttling. You get a 420 error. And then, finally, when you pull for something and it changes, you can get that sort of indication. So, you guys are all programmers. Does this seem like a particularly efficient model to you? Does it seem like a lot of fun to code with all the retry logic and all that noise? No, Rob, it sounds boring. That's true. So webhooks are the solution to all that. They're really, really great. So a webhook is a type of API design where you tell the API service that you're consuming, every time something changes with this thing I'm on, just send me an HTTP request to my application that's sitting on the internet at this address and let me know when it changes, right? So if your app says, hey, can you just let me know when something changes in this thing I want? It'll reply, 200 OK, that sounds great, or 201 created if you actually have programmatic access to a webhook. And then when something changes, it just sends an independent HTTP request to your app to let you know what happened. Right? That sounds like a lot more fun. Now, it's a little more difficult for you as an individual programmer because they have to sit on the internet, but I'm going to show you some tools that are going to make that a lot easier here in a bit. Some of the APIs that you can use that will do that include Foursquare. So if you would like to be notified anytime one of your friends check in Foursquare push notification API to do that. It uses this programmatic concept called webhooks. SendGrid is another great example. When you receive an API, you can get a webhook indicating that a email has entered a particular inbox. So there are two design paradigms that you can leverage with some of the APIs that I've mentioned. One's outbound, one's inbound. Another one is synchronous. These are streaming APIs. So this is you opening a persistent socket with some sort of external service and consuming what it gives you in real time. This is real data flow, right? So instead of a client-server request response model, you can open an individual socket, leave it open for as long as you want, and anytime anything changes, it gets sent back and forth, or anytime you want some changes, you can send some information on that socket. Twitter is probably the best, or I'm sorry, the most popular example. Definitely not the best example, but the most popular example of this kind of API. Pusher is another example of IP messaging API that makes it easy for you to send messages to mobile applications in the browsers, and Firebase, which is not in this deck, but is an excellent mobile backend as a service, also uses a similar concept. Does that make sense? Everybody clear on the 3 types of API patterns for you to consume? Everybody's like, this is great, Rob. That's awesome. Cool. In which case, let's go to the barn buster topic of serialization. So, serialization, XML and JSON. You're going to hear this a lot. JSON more than XML, but you are going to have to likely deal with some XML over the course of the weekend. So, serialization is a funny topic because each of the individual programming languages that you guys are selecting and the programming languages used by the services that you're consuming are likely going to be dramatically different, right? So let's take an example. Let's say you are a discriminating hacker at hackNY, and so you open every new project in Python, and you're consuming a API from some sort of service that perhaps does not have the immaculate taste that you have, and decided to use Ruby, right? So you both have data, you both need to exchange that data, and the issue with that exchange is that the format for a Python object is going to be fundamentally different than the format for a Ruby object, right? The solution to that is serialization. So taking that object and putting it into a standard string-based format that anyone can encode or decode or parse or marshal, right? So here's how the two look. XML is on the left, JSON's on the right. You don't really need to know any of the details about how this stuff works, except for what it looks like, so you can use a library to encode and decode that stuff for you. If you see curly braces, that means it's JSON. If you see angle brackets, that means it's XML. And here are all the really, really good XML parsers that are available for every language under the sun that don't have a strong one built in natively. Again, this is all on my GitHub repo for you to take a look at. For each of these languages, do not use the parser that exists in the standard library for that language. Instead, install and use this helper library because it's going to be a lot easier for you to manipulate. Okay? JSON decoders are strong in every standard library, so you can use that instead. You don't have to install anything else. Does that make sense? Okay, so you got information that you're sending out. You're getting some information back with webhooks, and you're possibly streaming some information, and you've decided on some sort of serialization format to send that information back and forth. Let's get to the landscape and talk about some APIs and what they do for you to use in your hacks this weekend. Twilio, so that's the company I work for, again, sends text messages, makes phone calls. Really, really fun bit. Last month we shipped MMS support in the United States on long code, so if you want to send pictures back and forth, you can do that. Just this afternoon, after the API demos, I made a quick hack to use the Fish Plays Pokemon API to create Fish Plays Magic 8-Ball. So if you send it a text message, you can, based upon the position of the fish in the tank, you will get a different Magic 8-Ball response. SendGrid, this is an excellent API for you to use with anything having to do with email. Not just sending email, not just receiving email, but also parsing email, which, as it turns out, is a time-consuming activity. Really, really good utility to use. If you're trying to exchange information in real time with real-time messages, highly recommend Pusher. Really good for both mobile and for web. OpenTalk, it's a really neat API service that's available for streaming video in real time. It uses WebRTC and takes all the stun, turn, brain damage, noise out of making WebRTC work over a network like what's available at NYU out of your hands and instead gives you an elegant, simple interface and abstraction to manipulate. Econas, how many of you guys planning on hacking on anything music related this weekend? No one, okay. Econas you're not going to use. Google Maps. If you're using any maps, don't deal with OpenStreetMap. Definitely don't mess around with MapQuest. Go ahead and use the new version 3 of the Google Maps API. The example documentation is by far the best of the 3. Also, you have a ton of customization options and customization tools that you can use without writing a whole lot of code. So if you want to make a map look really, really crazy and funky, Google Maps is absolutely the fastest route to that this weekend. Mastery. So if you're looking for any kind of content, if you are looking for how much a car costs, or if you're looking for how good a movie was, or if you're looking for the top 5 most ordered things at a restaurant, Mastery has a huge collection of APIs, over 150 different APIs for any kind of content that you imagine under the sun. And if you sign up for one account with Mastery, you get an API key that will work for all. So one login for over 150 different APIs. Anything that's content related or recommendation related or any sort of information that you need with metadata, highly recommend checking out Mastery. Who wants some super sick secret APIs? Cool, all right. Can you guys whip out your phones for me? I'm going to show you a quick demo using the Twilios. Okay, I want you to open a new text message to this number. It's totally going to be worth it, I promise. 202 800 1180. That's 202 800 1180. What I'd like you to do is send it a picture of something that's in your bag, some random thing that's in your bag. All right? You can take a picture of your laptop if you are feeling you can do that. Take a picture feeling super uncreative. Oh, your Game Boy Color, that's perfect. That's perfect. Please. Take a picture of a coffee, take a picture of a hooba jibber, whatever it is. I'm going to take a picture of this chalk. Yeah. Okay, did anybody get a response?
Analyzing my image. Yeah, same.
Analyzing your image? You got a response? What'd you get back? Oh, you're still sending. Yeah, that's the bummer about sending a mess with like 50 people in the same place. Everything just goes. So, to cut to the chase, what you're going to get back is a response in a different language, or whatever it is that you took a picture of. Right? And here's the super gift for all you guys that came in. This is absolutely no magic code from Twilio at all. This is using a API called CamFind. That's cam as in camera, find. Will take any image and tell you what it is with incredible specificity, right? So So if you have a pen sitting on a table and you take a picture of it, it's going to tell you what color it is. All right, it's an effect. Absolutely magical effect. Super reliable API, and I'm pretty sure it involves humans in some way. So you can check it out.
So this is the thing that I'm thinking about.
What?
There's no algorithm behind it, I think.
There is an algorithm behind it, but I think it's just a short pass. I do think a human is actually plugging it in because it's just too specific to be anything else. I think it's an easy to use front end to mechanical code. But API is super easy to use, and you can achieve really, really crazy effects with photo identification without writing any code at all. I'm sorry?
To use this, you just has to know how would you incorporate this
So this number that I gave you is just a demonstration of an app that was built on this technology. So if you wanted to do some photo identification in your app and do something crazy with it, just go to canfind.com. It's canfind.com. Sign up for an account.
Cool, got it out.
What'd you get back?
Got it. I think your picture contains red and white NY cap. Like a cap, as a cap. In
Alright.
French, that would be rogue et blanc NY cap net.
There you go.
I believe it.
Totally crazy. Totally crazy. So Canfind is an API for photo identification that you guys use. I guarantee you, it just started shipping a couple months ago. I guarantee you many of your peers know about it. So if you want any photo identification, you can use that. The other benefit that will give you a leg up on your competition is knowing the right tools. So much of working with APIs has to do with just building the correct tool chain on your local development environment. And here are some really, really easy tools to make all of that better. So first at the jump, if you're ever interacting with an API, never use the standard library of your programming language in order to interact with it. Like if you're looking at the reference documentation and it's saying send me a post request, and you're trying to write the code to send a post request, pretty much don't ever do that. Instead, use the helper libraries that are available from most of these API providers that are usually easy to install and easy to manipulate. They'll give you a native interface in your language of choice, and Twilio will give you a native idiomatic interface in your language of choice for interacting with the API. If the API that you're working with does not have support for the language that you use, I'd recommend using one of these HTTP clients that are not available in the standard library for each of these languages. For Python, the excellent requests library is great. HTTP Party is awesome for Ruby. PHP has a really good one called Guzzle. Java in particular, if you've ever tried to make an HTTP request for Java, there's 15 fucking lines of code that are involved with it. It's like 12 factors. It's like a total fucking mess. Use the Google HTTP client instead. .NET users use REST Sharp, and obviously noders are going to already know request. What this allows you to do is keep from reinventing the wheel. And another thing that you want to keep from reinventing the wheel is interacting with the database or doing some of the basic functionality that's associated with building a web application. How many of you guys are planning on doing web apps? Right here. Pretty much everybody in the group? Cool, cool. So we're just going to take a few minutes to talk about some of the web frameworks that are available for you to make building these apps a lot faster. And when you look at the ecosystem of web application frameworks that are available for a lot of the web programming languages that are out there, I like to categorize them in two different buckets. There's the kitchen sink and there's the not kitchen sink. So kitchen sink framework is going to have fucking everything you need for web application. It's going to be really, really big, right? So you're going to have a user authentication model that you can leverage. It's going to have some sort of connectivity to a database. It's going to have a templating engine built in. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff that you can leverage. The fastest frameworks that I have seen students of your level use at hackathons are the ones up on this screen. So for each individual language, this is the one that gets the Rob no stuff guarantee.
Why Django? Why not something lower level like Flask over there?
Well, because Flask does not come with a kitchen sink.
Okay, so you
Right.
you do recommend it.
Yeah, so if you have anything to do with user authentication, I would recommend using this. If you have something that does not use user authentication, you can use these no kitchen sink frameworks. These are lighter, easier to use ones that don't have nearly as much boilerplate up. You can grab all these slides at my GitHub so you don't have to take a crappy picture and try to figure out what that font is. So those are the two bits. If you're doing any user authentication at all, definitely use these. If you're not doing user authentication, use these instead. Does that make sense?
So, no, like, did you say a framework for Node.js?
Yeah, there's not really an awesome web framework, period, for Node. I'm just going to go out there and say it. Express is the best possible option for Node right now. Hopefully someone fixes that. Any other questions? Kitchen sink and no kitchen sink? Is this helpful for you guys? Oh, man, you're going to have to use it. It kind of sucks, but, you know, so does school, but you still have to do it. Otherwise, your mother cries. So I wanted to provide you guys some integration tools to work with OAuth. Now, the reason why OAuth is so painful and why people struggle with it is doing live coding on any sort of application and exposing it to the internet. So when you're working on your laptop and you're working on localhost is not available to the internet, right? And if you're going to engage in a successful OAuth negotiation, that thing has to be on the internet, right? It needs to be on a DigitalOcean droplet, or it needs to be on a Heroku dyno, or it needs to be on a Bluemix thingy, or Bluemix host. And anytime you use any of those individual pieces, you have to continuously publish the code that's on your local server in order to tweak, whatever goat that you have to sacrifice at the correct time in the OAuth chain in order to get a successful authentication. So what I'd like to show you guys, if that's okay, is a tool called ngrok that makes this a lot easier for you working on your local environment. So ngrok is not here. Mirror my displays. So ngrok, N-G-R-O-K, is a way to create an introspective tunnel from the local host on your machine on the public internet. So if you're running a Express server on your local laptop, ngrok is a utility you can use to expose that to the internet and allow other services to interact with it. So if you take a service like Twilio, for example, whom I work for, the way that it works when you receive a text message is entirely based on the internet, right? So someone makes a call or sends a text message to a Twilio phone number, right? Twilio makes a request to your web application, asks you what you want to do with it. You respond with some XML, right? Now, the big break here is if you're working on your local laptop, there is no way for Twilio to get to your local host. So ngrok is a utility that can make that a lot easier. So let's go ahead and show how that works right quick by going to my Twilio account, picking up a new number, and we'll build a Twilio app right now and show you guys how awesome the ngrok is. So who here traveled to get to hackNY today? Okay. Where'd you guys come in from? Where? Good work, my friend. What area code? Are you guys from Boston?
Yeah, you can say so.
Where?
You can say so, yeah, Boston.
I can say so? What's your area code, dude?
You got?
What?
You want like you got or anything?
No, area code.
413.
413. Let's see if we have some 413 numbers. Covington, Mass. That's awesome. It's a great name for a town. That's just spectacular, Rob. Good work. Okay, so we have a Twilio phone number, and again, the way that Twilio works is very can be similar to the webhooks that you get for an OAuth request, right? Anytime someone makes a phone call to this Massachusetts number, Twilio is going to make a request to a web application that needs to sit on the internet somewhere. So we're going to use a service called ngrok to create that and live code this app right now. So I'll open up a terminal that I already have open, a whole bunch of stuff open. I'm going to create a Flask app because Kushal was plugging it earlier. I'm going to grab a Flask object. I'm going to instantiate that into an app. I'm going to create an endpoint, which we're going to call SMS. I'm going to have it accept a post request, define that function, and then I'm going to hop back and grab from Twilio a dependency called Twiml, which is going to make it easy for me to respond to it. And create a response object. I'm going to respond to you with a message. Holy Jeebus, this came from my laptop. And I'm going to return that response as a string. Going to finish it out with a little boilerplate that's going to make all this stuff run. And basically, I'm just going to run this with debug true because I'm live coding and anything can happen. Save that guy, and we're good to go. So I have a little quick Python app. I want to just run it on my laptop and see what happens with it, but publishing it on the internet just to test it would be kind of a mess. So instead, I can use ngrok to take that port 5000 that the application I just wrote is running on and publish it to an internet address that it'll give me, which I can copy. I can head back to my app, drop it in and save. And now, if you guys whip out your phones, like everybody whip out your phones, and send a text message to the Massachusetts number that we just bought, which is 413-200-3077. Send anything you like.
What was the number again?
413-200-3077. Holy biscuits! By magic, that code that's running on my laptop is on the internet now. Okay, so you're like, oh, okay, well, the happy path was super easy to figure out, Rob. That's all cool, but what's the real benefit for using something like ngrok? Well, let's say we introduce a bug, right? Let's introduce a very Bush League bug to our code. And obviously my syntax highlighter is saying like, dude, what are you doing? Or we can actually do this a little more crazily, like easy bugs, right? And instead have a typo in our response. So we have a typo in response, we have a deliberate bug, it's going to totally break our Twilio application. And if we send a text message to it, we're going to see a 500 internal server error. We're going to be like, oh no, global response is not defined. Now, the awesome bit about ngrok is not just putting your laptop on the internet, it's this utility right here that it also runs on localhost on port 4040. Which will allow you to introspect what went wrong with your request, right? So here I can see absolutely everything that Twilio sent to me, right? I can see the phone number that came from, I can see the body, disks, hydro that the person determined to send, all the information that I received from Twilio, and then I can see in a summary my application's response back to Twilio, which was clearly a Flask application error page, right? So the awesome bit is with that crazy feature is that if I go back into my app, right, and I fix that bug, instead of having to type the text message out and send it again, all I have to do is hit this replay button, and it sends that exact same request to my web app, and I can see that it returned 200 OK. So ngrok is an awesome test bench whenever you're working with webhooks, or when you're working with OAuth, or you're working with anything that requires an external service to be touching your web application when it's on the web, because you can develop locally on your machine and iterate quickly without having to do a deploy every time. Is that pretty rad? You guys dig that? Yeah. Cool. Well, let's take a look at some other tools that might be boss. Oh, we don't want to start all the way at the beginning. That would not be fun for you. Definitely not be fun for me. Cool. So design. How many of you guys know about Twitter Bootstrap? For now, just call it Bootstrap. Cool. Everybody else here knows about it too. So if you want an unfair advantage to make it look like you have a designer on your team when you really don't, you can instead use some of these. Zerg Foundation works very similar to Bootstrap, but the appearance of the application is dramatically different, right? If you watch 10 demos tomorrow on stage, fully 8 of them are going to be using Bootstrap in their interface. If you want to easily distinguish yourself away from the crowd without actually knowing anything about how to do that, just use Zerg Foundation instead of Bootstrap. Another framework that has tasteful design but looks dramatically different from Bootstrap is this one called Ink, which even fewer students in the Hackathon community know how to use. And if you're just looking for something very simple, bare bones, and lightweight, highly recommend a tasty responsive framework called Bourbon, which will make producing that responsive design super easy to do without any bloat of what you would get from a component-based interface like Bootstrap. Deployment, you got to get it up on a server somehow, and that could be a super pain in the butt. Simplest way to go is certainly Heroku. All you have to do is hook it up to a GitHub repo, commit, push, and it's absolutely free. If you need Node with WebSockets, most of the time Heroku is not going to work for you. The reliability of the Cedar routing stack in particular on getting it to work with Socket.io, if any of you guys are using that in your Node apps. Instead, I would recommend going with Nodejitsu. They also have the advantage of being a New York-based company, so they'll give you kudos points when it comes demonstration time. And nearly everybody that works at that company lives on IRC. So if you go on Freenode and go into the Nodejitsu account, and if you're having any kind of problem whatsoever, you can go ahead and reach them there. The only other stack I would recommend, which is going to take a little bit more time if you guys don't mind me saying so, is using DigitalOcean for any of your webhooks. It's going to take quite a bit more configuration time, but as it happens, Tammy and Bulan are right here to help you set that shizzle up, so you can take advantage of it. If you're looking to do as little work as possible and still use the cloud, I can recommend Google App Engine. So if you are a Python developer, or you're a Java developer, or you're a Go developer, and you're doing anything with user authentication, right? Using Google App Engine is a super fast way to go. You get a ton of stuff for free. You get task queues for free. You get easy to use testbed to write your data model test with. A streaming API, like a crap load of different interfaces that are available for you. All using Google App Engine. Sour news though, if you want to use that code ever again and move it onto something that's not Google App Engine, you're shit out of luck because there's massive vendor lock-in. But for a hackathon, it works great. If you're developing a mobile app and you don't want to mess with the server, highly recommend Parse if you're working on iOS in particular. The documentation for Parse and iOS is superior to any other mobile backend as a service provider that I have seen. If you're doing anything real-time, would highly recommend Firebase. So they have an excellent real-time API, both for JavaScript and for mobile that you can leverage for Graph. Groovy, that's the whole rigmarole, y'all. Try to arm you with a whole bunch of little different tidbits of information working with your APIs. If you have any questions on this or anything else that's related to programming over the course of the weekend, I'll be around with a Any questions? Is this useful for you guys? Did that help? Are you guys going to install ngrok? This is the jam.